There's no more woke in this country. This woke has cost us a fortune and cost us our reputation, but the reputation's coming back very, very rapidly. Thank you very much, everybody.
States now, where we know that DOGE is busily fossicking through all federal employees, seeing where they can cut the fat. And part of that process has been to offer all federal employees, regardless of where they're serving, a buyout, an 8-month buyout. So instead of saying, okay, we're going to figure out who needs to go and we're going to fire you forcibly, they've started by saying, hey, if you know you're useless, leave now. Do our jobs for us. Leave the ship, rats. Well, 3 federal unions have gotten together saying we represent this people, and this is an ultimatum that is unlawful. We're not standing for it. So just hours before the deadline to say, yes, I'm in, I want that buyout, hours before that deadline was to occur, a federal judge has come out and says, oh, these 3 unions have bought this case. I'm pressing pause on the deadline while I decide whether this is allowed or not. So there's a lot more federal employees sweating it out over the weekend saying, actually, this offer is still open to me. DOGE was hoping that this would clean out 5 to 10% of the entirety of current federal employees. They served in the Biden administration, so naturally you want to get rid of as many of these inept buffoons as you can. 65,000 of them have already accepted the buyout. They were hoping for more, but they've got 3%. So the Trump admin's happy with that rather than nothing. And now the judge is coming down and this could be quashed. What a loss that would be. If you're in DOGE and you're like, okay, 3% of them took our offer, we're getting rid of 65,000 morons, yay. And now it looks like it could be thrown out.
It's a brilliant way of getting the trash to take itself out, right?
Exactly.
I mean, They get rid of all the dead wood, by which I mean the people employed under the Biden administration's DEI policies. They create an exit ramp for people who don't like Donald Trump and would just be a blockage in different departments serving in his administration, so they give them an easy way out. Plus, they're going to save a bucket load of money. And on top of that, if after this, Trump then goes and makes and then fires a whole lot of people, then he can always fall back on the fact, well, we offered 8 months' pay if you took a redundancy and you declined to take it. And 8 months redundancy is pretty generous, I would have thought. So Trump's provided himself cover for what he will undoubtedly do after this offer expires, whenever the court allows it to expire. He'll go through and make sure they cull at least 10% of federal employees, which then raises the other interesting question. What percentage of government employees, whether in the US or here in Australia or anywhere around the Western world, are really just warming seats and are completely unproductive, yet being paid for by the taxpayer?
Lots of them. Lots of them. I remember last time we talked about some public service story here, right? And a bloke wrote to me, that's right, it was a story about South Australia where they have this waiting room, basically, of public service employees who don't actually have a job to do at the moment, but for whatever reason they can't be sacked. So they're sitting there on full pay just waiting for a job. And a bloke wrote to me and said, this is not just happening in South Australia, this is happening in Sydney as well. And he told me about this place somewhere in Sydney where all of these public servants who are waiting for jobs go and they receive training and first aid courses and all sorts of stuff, and they were advertising for a manager to manage these people who don't have jobs. This is how the public service runs here in Australia. You can be sure it's what's going on in the US as well. But the union wants to be careful because the union is challenging this in court.
Three of them.
On the basis that they don't think the government would be able to give the payouts that these people are owed because the budgets aren't shored up yet. Well, if they manage to quash this deal, Trump is just going to go through and sack them all, and they're going to get no money.
Far cheaper.
So I'd be careful about going after that one if I
Wouldn't you be angry at your union? You'd be like, no, shut up.
You're meant to be representing the workers, and then you're like, no payout for you. You're just going to get sacked.